18 days ago, I challenged myself to learn as much Italian as I possibly can before my trip to Italy. I've made learning Italian my full-time job until today. My flight is tomorrow and I'm pretty burnt out, to be honest with you. Learning a language in such a short time frame requires a very different approach to what I'm comfortable with. I prefer to learn language by getting lots and lots of comprehensible input. That is, listening and reading in the language I'm learning, with content I can understand and enjoy. With this approach, your understanding of the language gradually grows and you gain an intuitive knowledge of the grammar without having to study it explicitly. The drawback of this approach is that it can take a long time to get to the point of actually speaking. Your brain gets good at what it practices. So with this input-based approach, you can get pretty good at understanding the language quite quickly because that's what you're focusing on. Eventually, you do get so familiar with the vocabulary and the grammatical structures that you can use them naturally. But at first, for a long time, although you can recognize enough words to understand what's being said, if you try to speak, you can't recall the words that you need, let alone understand the grammar well enough to put together a proper sentence. So if you want to be able to communicate after just a very short time of learning the language, you have to practice that recall. You have to train yourself to use the language like any other skill, rather than just letting the language grow naturally in your brain. And I hate that. But here's how to do it. Step 1. Start with input. It's still worth getting in a bunch of input hours to get started. This will help you develop an intuitive feel for the language. You can use Squeno stories or other graded readers, and comprehensible input videos. The Comprehensible Input Wiki is a great resource for finding content. They use this symbol to mark channels that have content suitable for absolute beginners. Step 2. Practice reading aloud. Once you're over that initial hump and you feel like you can understand absolute beginner content okay, start reading your content aloud and repeating sentences after you hear them. The intuition you've gained from step 1 will help you feel how things should be pronounced. Step 3. Introduce sentence flashcards. Think through some conversations you're likely to have and create flashcards for sentences you might need to say. Start with basic ones like introductions and keep growing your deck with more and more complex sentences. Put the English sentence on the front and the target language translation on the back. When you study the flashcards, try to recall the target language version and say it out loud, and then check it against the back of the card. Repeat, repeat, repeat.
C'è qualcosa senza formaggio?
This will teach you the sentences on the cards, but not only that, you'll also start making connections between the sentences, noticing how words and grammar are used. When you go on to communicate with native speakers, you'll be able to use this knowledge to construct sentences that might not be correct, but they'll still probably be understood. So there you have it. I believe that's the best you can do in such a short time frame. This is exactly what I've done to learn some Italian in preparation for my trip to Italy. But would I recommend it? Absolutely not. I believe language learning should be something to be enjoyed. After trying to cram it into less than 3 weeks, I feel pretty burnt out. Rather than appreciating the language, I feel a resentment for the complexity of its grammar. And what do I have to show for it? Only a very rudimentary level of Italian. So if you're going to learn a language, I implore you to take the scenic route. Immerse yourself in content and allow the language to develop in your brain at its own pace. It's much more enjoyable and sustainable. If you enjoy studying grammar, go for it. But the key is to avoid forcing yourself to do anything. Just enjoy your time with the language. I don't fully regret doing this, because it has reminded me what it's like to learn a language from zero. I've added a new type of story to Squeno that covers scenarios you might find yourself in. I'm also working on a first steps series that introduces languages from the very basics in a way that's approachable to absolute beginners. Okay, so I'm now back from my trip to Italy. We had a great time in Milan and Lake Como, and it was really interesting to test out my Italian. There were certainly times where I felt completely out of my depth. For example, we had to hitchhike one time and we were picked up by a very friendly and talkative man who kindly took us where we needed to go. He didn't speak any English, so it would have been a good opportunity to use my Italian, but unfortunately I could barely understand anything he was saying. So natural conversation in Italian at a normal pace, it still seems to be beyond my ability. However, most of the times that I needed to use my Italian were situations that I'd already studied with my flashcards. In interactions such as buying tickets, ordering food, or making a reservation, I was understood by locals and could understand most of their replies as well. My girlfriend and I are both vegan, and it was especially useful to be able to discuss which options are suitable for us. So to conclude, it is possible to learn a language to a useful level in a very short period of time, but it's not fun. And if you want to get really good, then this probably isn't the best way to do it. Is your language learning workflow different from mine? Let me know in the comments. What language are you learning, and what are your favourite and least favourite language learning activities? Please like, subscribe and hit the bell to see more of my videos. You can check out my app Squeno if you like at the link in the description. Thanks for watching.